June 25, 1876, a day that would forever mark one of the most controversial and mystifying battles in American history. Custer's last stand. But was it truly a heroic final act? Or was there a deeper, hidden truth lurking in the smoke-filled skies of Montana? Stay with us as we unravel the myths and reveal the untold story behind the Battle of the Little Bighorn. You may never look at American history the same way again. The buildup. The American West in the 1800s was a land of dreams and conflict. As settlers moved westward, they crossed into the sacred territories of Native American tribes, sparking tensions and violence that would culminate in one of the most dramatic confrontations of the century. The Lakota Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes had long claimed dominion over the plains, but the discovery of gold in the Black Hills, their sacred land, brought unrelenting waves of American settlers. The U.S. government, eager to profit from the discovery, pressured the tribes to relocate to reservations. Yet one man stood in defiance, Sitting Bull, the spiritual leader of the Hunkpapa Lakota, who foresaw a vision of unity and victory for his people. In 1876, at a Sundance ceremony, Sitting Bull had a vision where he saw American soldiers falling from the sky like grasshoppers, a vivid image that foretold the coming battle. This vision united the native warriors in their resolve to defend their lands from U.S. encroachment. Meanwhile, the U.S. government had launched a campaign to force the native tribes onto reservations. The mission fell to the hands of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, a man known for his flashy personality, bravery, and often reckless decision-making. A decorated Civil War hero, Custer's fame was matched by his thirst for glory that would ultimately lead him to one of the greatest defeats in U.S. military history. But as Custer set out with his 7th Cavalry, did he truly understand the forces he would face? The underlying conflict. The battle wasn't just about a military campaign, it was about the clash of two worlds. The Black Hills, known as Pahasapa to the Lakota, were not just another piece of land. They were sacred. The Lakota believed the hills to be the center of their spiritual universe, and the U.S. government's encroachment was viewed as not just a political betrayal, but a spiritual violation. The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 had guaranteed the Black Hills to the Lakota, but the discovery of gold by Custer himself in 1874 changed everything. Settlers rushed in, and soon, the government sought to seize the land despite the treaty. The Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho refused to yield. This resistance was part of a larger war, the Great Sioux War of 1876. What most Americans didn't realize at the time was that the Lakota were not the original occupants of these lands. In fact, they had seized them from other tribes, such as the Crow and Shoshone, in the years before. But in the U.S. government's eyes, this was irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was gaining control of the Black Hills and forcing the Lakota onto reservations. As tensions rose, so did the military pressure. The U.S. Army dispatched a 3-pronged campaign aimed at cornering and defeating the tribes. The 7th Cavalry was just one part of a larger effort, but Custer's role would become the most infamous. Custer's fatal mistake. As Custer rode into Montana territory with his 700 men, he had little accurate intelligence. His scouts warned him of the massive size of the native encampment, but Custer dismissed their concerns. Believing that he was up against no more than 800 warriors, he saw an opportunity for a swift victory, one that could catapult him to national fame. Despite being offered Gatling guns for additional firepower, Custer refused. He felt they would slow his advance and hinder his mobility. He also rejected offers for reinforcements, convinced that his cavalry alone could handle whatever opposition awaited. But this was a grave miscalculation. What Custer didn't know was that Sitting Bull had united several thousand warriors from the Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. These warriors were prepared for a fight that Custer could not possibly win. On the morning of June 25, 1876, Custer made the fateful decision to divide his forces into 3 separate battalions. He dispatched Major Marcus Reno with 175 men to attack the southern end of the encampment, while Captain Frederick Benteen was tasked with scouting the surrounding area and guarding the supply train. Custer himself, with 5 companies, would attempt to strike the village directly. The battle unfolds. As Reno's men charged toward the southern end of the encampment, they quickly realized they were in over their heads. What they thought was a small group of native warriors turned out to be a massive army of defenders, ready to protect their families and homes. Within minutes, Reno's forces were overwhelmed and forced into a chaotic retreat across the Little Bighorn River. The soldiers sought refuge in a patch of timber, but the relentless pressure from the native warriors forced Reno to flee to higher ground, leaving behind many of his wounded. Meanwhile, Custer pressed ahead, unaware of Reno's plight. He and his men approached the northern end of the village, hoping to catch the warriors by surprise. Instead, they found themselves facing thousands of Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho fighters. As Custer's men prepared for battle, they were quickly surrounded. The details of Custer's last moments remain a mystery, but one thing is certain: his forces were annihilated. Custer and all 210 men who rode with him were killed in what became known as the Last Stand. Myths and realities. For decades, the Battle of Little Bighorn was shrouded in myth. Custer was lionized as a tragic hero, a man who fought bravely against impossible odds. His widow, Libby Custer, worked tirelessly to cement his legacy, painting him as a martyr of American progress. But as historians delved deeper into the battle, a different story emerged. Custer wasn't a hero. He was a man driven by ambition, hubris, and a gross underestimation of his enemy. His refusal to wait for reinforcements, his reckless division of his forces, and his ignorance of the native strategy all contributed to his downfall. Native accounts tell a story of decisive and strategic action on their part. Crazy Horse and Chief Gall led a coordinated attack that completely outmaneuvered Custer's forces. Sitting Bull, though not directly involved in the fighting, had set the spiritual and strategic tone that united the tribes against the invaders. By the 1930s, Custer's once heroic image began to tarnish. Historians recognized that the U.S. government's war against the native tribes was not just brutal, but unjust. The tribes were defending their way of life, their families, and their sacred lands. The Native Perspective. From the Native American perspective, the Battle of Little Bighorn was a triumph, but it was also bittersweet. The victory did not stop the flood of U.S. forces that would soon descend upon them. Within a year, many of the tribes involved were forced onto reservations. Their way of life forever changed. For the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, the victory was a testament to their resilience and strength. But they also knew that this was not the end of the war. It was only a temporary reprieve from an inevitable outcome. Chief Gall, Crazy Horse, and Sitting Bull became symbols of native resistance, their stories passed down through generations. For them, the battle wasn't just about defeating Custer, it was about fighting for survival. Aftermath and legacy. The aftermath of Little Bighorn sent shockwaves across the United States. News of Custer's defeat arrived on the heels of the nation's centennial celebrations, casting a dark shadow over the era of manifest destiny. The U.S. military, stunned and embarrassed by the loss, responded with overwhelming force. Within months, General Crook and Colonel Nelson A. Miles led a renewed campaign that relentlessly pursued the native forces. Crazy Horse surrendered in 1877, and Sitting Bull fled to Canada. The victory at Little Bighorn was fleeting, but its legacy endures. Today, the battlefield is a national monument, honoring those who fought on both sides. For the native tribes, it stands as a reminder of their courage and the price they paid to defend their homeland. The Battle of Little Bighorn may be remembered as Custer's last stand, but it was also a powerful testament to native strength, unity, and defiance. It is a story that challenges us to reconsider our heroes and rethink the narratives we've long accepted. So, what do you think? Was Custer a valiant leader, or was his downfall inevitable? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's most captivating battles. Until next time, stay curious.